views and viewpoints and how do we apply it with respect to hypoha. So essentially, what is views and viewpoints, and how does it apply to architecture and the problems that we are trying to solve? A quick history. IEEE 1471 talks about views and viewpoints, which means this is a pretty old concept in architecture, and which is something which enhances the power of architecture to a great extent. So, a viewpoint is basically a set of concerns that basically means thoughts. It could be somebody's thoughts, it could be somebody's opinions, it could be actual facts and data about a particular view. It could be explicit or implicit. So for example, if I'm going to increase security checks, uh, that will slow down the application. That could be another viewpoint. So it might be implicit also. Um a view is basically uh, what you are looking at. So imagine, if I have to make it simple, it is something like, now you are looking at a view of this monitor in front of you, and your eye is one viewpoint, or the screen that we are looking at. So the screen that I have shared is a view. Each of us sitting have a different viewpoint towards it. So if somebody else is sitting next to me, they will have a different viewpoint. So at a very basic level, a view is same. The viewpoints could change. For a scenario, there could be multiple views itself. So for example, in this case, the scenario is we are having a Zoom meeting. There is a participant view, which is different from a host view. The host view itself can have multiple viewpoints. The participant view can have multiple viewpoints. So, what does it even mean a little bit more? So, let's look at it from a architecture perspective. So, if I take a performance view of an application, there are different viewpoints. So, business owner has got a viewpoint, a software developer has got a viewpoint, project manager has got a viewpoint, business operations will have a viewpoint, and IT operations will have a viewpoint. What are their concerns? From a business owner perspective, for him, when he looks at performance, he would want the application to work pretty well. Then a software developer will say, oh, if I have to do performance, then I have to put additional effort to develop things, as if I have to keep a certain performance in mind. It is going to increase the complexity of my code. For a project manager, high performance means it is going to take more development effort, and it also means the time to market is becoming more. A highly performant application requires a lot more development time. The software developer technically isn't worried about the time to market. Maybe the business owner would be. It becomes interesting when we have a fixed price kind of a project. Okay, so that adds a little more complexity to it. From a business operations perspective, SLAs and operations cost matters for keeping the performance up. So that could mean that you have more people cleaning up the log files, having more servers. So that is a kind of operational cost of getting what is the performance view is going to be. So the point here is, when we're going to discuss performance, typically we kind of miss multiple viewpoints, and that hits us later. Classically, when we look at a performance view, usually the software developer's viewpoint or the technical architect's viewpoint alone is taken. But as architects, we are supposed to generate these views, capture it, and based on the information collected, then we kind of come to a conclusion on how the architecture should handle each and every viewpoint's needs. The Another example, if I have to take, we can actually rate each viewpoints. So that's one way in which how you can use a viewpoint. So this gives an example of, if I'm going to take security or performance, availability, there is a functional view, then there's an information view. For example, if I'm going to increase security, that means if from an information view, what menu items will be shown to whom, how will the data be stored, like that. Similarly, deployment, right? So when I say I want to have high performance, it also means that the deployment is going to be high. Now, if I'm going to increase performance, I'm going to do multiple cache. Then then the question comes, what all data am I going to replicate? I don't want to replicate all data. Or if I simply say I'm going to replicate all data, then what is going to happen is your deployment and operational views will start increasing complexity. So this is another way of using in this case, the perspective here is nothing but a viewpoint. Okay, so at an enterprise level, if you take a particular system, we take a enterprise viewpoint or a computational viewpoint, technology viewpoint, engineering viewpoint, and information viewpoint. Now, basically, all the three different views and viewpoints, right? There's a bunch of libraries which comes from different architecture framework. One of the most popular ones will be the 4+1 library, that viewpoint, all of you would be familiar with. But what we are trying to do is understand that there is a view and a viewpoint. Now, to simplify it, this is too complex for us to apply on a day-to-day basis. So what we do is, now bringing it down to Hypoha, what we will do now is basically do a kata. So how do we apply these views and viewpoints? Step one will be, we will use the PUX Excel. You will pick a customer journey for a scenario. Pick your current project or the work that you are doing so that it is useful. Okay, rather than an imaginary one. Then for that, anyway, you will, now when you're going to fill up the customer journey, right? Think of a viewpoint for each customer that is involved. So let's say if I'm going to take something like, let's take something as simple as bug issue raised till production deployment. So this is one customer journey. So the scenario is basically fixing of bugs. Okay, the journey is going to be, an issue is raised, how a bug is fixed and moved to production. So that would be the customer journey. The different viewpoints would be from a developer perspective, from an architect perspective, from a level 2 or a level 3 support who is raising that issue. Probably if it is going, there would also be the client partners viewpoint in how this bug is being fixed. Then there would be the product manager or the project manager view. So there are multiple viewpoints which can be generated for a view. So if we take a example of a customer eating out and we map the views and viewpoints with the performance under supply X-ray that we have done, in this case, the customer journey is eating out at a restaurant, and the customer here happens to be the actual customer who's going to eat, and that is basically a diner's viewpoint. And for that, we have different steps which we are taking, and that is basically like one of the things is deciding on the restaurant, looking for a restaurant, travel to the car. So you look at, these are the different steps in the customer journey when you look at it from a diner's viewpoint. Interestingly, now if I say for the same view, eating out at the customer journey, now I am looking at a manager's point of view. Okay, so it's a manager's viewpoint. Now, if you see the steps, customer journey steps immediately changes. It changes to sees the customer entering, waiting for a table. So essentially, for the same customer journey, we are generating two different viewpoints, and each will have its own set of trim tab steps, which will help us in further identifying the MVPs. So to summarize, it helps if we can do a customer journey, generate multiple viewpoints for that. From that, identify the different steps. From that, identify the trim tab, and then go and do the MVP for the trim tab identified. So that's how a pucks and the views and viewpoints come together.